Excelsior!
Welcome to part 3 of our examination of the Marvel cards, starting with the hero sets, which is really, really long and strong.
Yeah, there's 52 heroes alone, and each one of them we got at least, even if it's only 1 minute to talk about each card, you're getting into an hour. So we had to cut them up.
We need time to talk about Aunt May, man.
Exactly, and we missed Cyclops and Professor X. But without further ado, this is part 3. Lockheed. He was featured in Shadowcat's card in part 1.
Yes.
But Lockheed, man, he got his own card? He was that visible?
I think because Excalibur they were trying hard to get that book, popular. And it was an 80s creation, so at least Lockheed was. So I feel like they were trying to, let's give him his own card. And kids like dragons, right?
Yeah, he was fun. I remember from Secret Wars, he then showed up. After Secret Wars, Colossus came back with his own dragon, who then fought Lockheed.
Of course.
But Lockheed is super cute. But on
that picture.
That's his least.
And they're not even showing you his scale.
Yeah, the scale's all off.
I think
there.
I got this card before Shadowcat, so I'm like, why is she petting that fierce dragon?
Yeah,
I don't understand.
Didn't make sense.
But I love the did you know? There's some of my favorite parts about these cards. The trivia: no one, not even Shadowcat, knows which planet Lockheed comes from. Do they know yet, Henry?
I'm sorry, my Lockheed knowledge is a little weak, but they have given him a backstory. I'm sure.
I'm sure there's an unnecessary amount of backstory at this point.
That's kind of what Excalibur was all about, to give backstory.
What a cop-out for the height and weight.
His cute stats.
Yeah.
Lockheed just won't sit still enough.
Is that really how they did it? Like, everyone has to stand on a scale?
They did. Stan Lee measured everybody in person.
That was part of the other fun of these is, while it's kind of hokey today, there were all kinds of notes in there as if all these characters were real.
Yeah.
So it's a very in-universe assessment of these characters sometimes, where, he won't sit still long enough, or let's just say Thing doesn't have a lot of friends. I don't know. It was better than a just plain dry, here's what happened.
Yeah.
Next card is...
yeah, boom.
Don't close the tab. Don't close the tab. Trust me, the next card is worth it.
Oh, man. Yeah. Well, so I would bet that is a John Romita drawing, a John Romita Sr. drawing.
Her
maybe
stats.
a Buscema.
Her stats.
Yeah, so there she is. Good old Aunt May.
Oh, my God. Pie's baked. 984.
Nice.
Life-threatening illnesses recovered from.
Yep, meal served. 2 many to count. Wrinkles. Yeah, she definitely, her thing was she always had life-threatening things. They've in the years since this, they have definitely done their best to revitalize Aunt May and make her not as, Peter, I don't like you with that awful Spider-Man.
Because she's supposed to be 65-ish, I guess. You could guess maybe 70, but 65, 70-year-olds today get around a lot easier, so they write her more like a cool 60-year-old.
Yeah, but
and not a ailing. She's definitely ailing in most of these comics.
In her first appearances in Amazing Spider-Man Annual #1 from '65, she is so blind that when she's written is so blind
blind is she?
not getting things that Dr. Octopus comes in with his arms out and she's like, "Oh, you nice man, have some tea."
I didn't
Betty
know
Brant's
it was
just
Halloween.
wait, no, this is a supervillain.
Group affiliation says Grey Panthers.
Yeah, that was it was an old people group of
book club.
Yeah,
Bridge
it was
club?
in real life. No, it was a real life collection of old people who were like, "Hey, you should respect us. We're old people." At this time, I would bet she was dating a man named Nate, who she planned to marry. He was wheelchair bound, and he died from shock from being carried
by the Vulture.
An
we
old
should note,
crime there.
If you're joining us just for part 2 and haven't seen part 1, a Spider-Man card has not yet appeared.
Get ready.
Get ready.
The black costume Spider-Man.
I know, but Spider-Man proper.
She still isn't aware he's Spider-Man. She later would find out his secret identity. Well, first she would reveal she knew his secret identity, then die in Spider-Man 400.
Yeah.
She would then come back and say that she never knew his secret identity. She would then find it out again, and then Mephisto would remove that secret identity knowledge from her mind. After a time, she nearly died again.
And now, finally,
there we go.
Yeah, I love those web pits. Web pit Spidey is my favorite Spidey.
So that
is so old school.
But this bothered me because he's not doing a thwip thing with his hand. He's just carrying
the Activision rope hold.
I mean, he's in the middle of swinging.
I know, but come on, man.
It'd be nice to see a thwip.
It's a generation's introduction, but I do love how big of a paragraph. There's so many things they want to get.
That is a crowded back thing.
The villains. He's got some of the best villains outside of Batman and Flash. Really, his rogues gallery is
so many nicknames too.
Yeah.
And the classic great power with great responsibility, because this is the real Spider-Man
not the
intro,
black,
not the black costume one.
Yep.
I also
he's
like
got 1,500 battles under his belt.
Yeah.
I also like that those are the classic smaller eyes because at this time, this is actually very anti what was in the comics. Todd
Yes.
McFarlane, Eric Larson, and
Yeah.
soon after them, Mark Bagley, giant eyes, emotive eyes even.
Yeah.
And, but that
this
is
is
a
how
classic.
my first toy from the Marvel superheroes toy line around 89 or 90. I forget what year, but the Spider-Man figure from that line is very much that with small eyes, thick black lines on the head instead of like a bunch of thin ones.
Oh, and I always remember that 10 tons thing. I was like, okay, Spidey, 10 tons.
I
That's
committed
the
that
number,
shit to
yep.
memory.
Yeah.
Spider-Man can lift 10 tons.
That's the
that is-
number.
It's 1/10 of Thor's.
I'll be
Just
on
learned
my
from his card.
deathbed and in full dementia, and I'll be like, Spider-Man lifts 10 tons.
It's 10 tons.
That and the lyrics says drops of Jupiter, the only two things I'm going to keep in my mind.
That profile pic is like straight out of the meme where he's at the desk.
Yeah.
I think that was taken right from his video game. Like, I think that
Oh,
was.
really?
Yeah, but I can't name the game.
Well, it looks like we're done with Spider-Man.
Oh,
good.
it's again.
See, now those are the
This is
classic.
super
those
confusing.
were kind of the eyes.
That's
at
the
time.
spectacular Spider-Man artist, right?
Yeah, that's Buscema. That's
Like-
totally Sal Buscema. That's exactly how he would draw his feet.
Ooh, he's flying
So
awfully
this
close
is
to the Trade Center
The
there.
third Spider-Man superhero card of the set,
Yeah.
but the distinction is on the back. It is Cosmic
Cosmic.
Spider-Man, which
That's
I've never been
confused.
able to find anything related
This
to.
confused the shit out of me because
Yeah.
in '92 when I started reading Spider-Man, this was way in the past.
Yeah.
He hadn't been Cosmic Spidey
Yeah.
in forever.
And like Spider-Man can fly? What?
Yeah, I eventually, because I feel like the card lays it out pretty clearly. Like Mr. Universe or the Enigma Force gives him this power. He beats the Tri-Sentinel, and now he doesn't have those powers. But when he did, he could fight people like Magneto and other like big time villains. And then not long after this, I guess maybe 2 or 3 years, which in kid time is insane.
Forever.
He fights the Tri-Sentinel again,
But without the powers, but he has Nova on his side.
and
to help
Nova's
him.
there. Yeah,
Yeah,
but
That was so. Yeah, the quick thing about the Enigma Force, it's I believe a Steve Ditko creation, and it's such a cool idea that
Wow.
the Enigma Force is a power that makes anybody Superman level powerful, and it turns you into Captain Universe, but only briefly, and then it will float off to somebody else.
Yeah.
So it's a great storytelling opportunity.
It's also
and
a
it
great
pops
time to
up
point
early.
out the Twin Towers in the background of this card. I
Ooh,
believe
yeah.
their first appearance in here. Not soon enough, I say. But the card at least makes the distinction of like 1990. By the time these cards were out, this was over, and I
Yeah.
don't think any other card
It was
has
such
that.
a cool stories
at his-
because Spider-Man never fought Hulk like that,
Yeah.
never fought Magneto, Loki.
But look at his
all
battle
these
spot.
people.
31.
He-
He has a high win percentage because he's fought 31 battles.
the idea
I
that-
fought more
At
battles.
that point, he was starring in 3 books at the same.
yeah,
at
but the
same
idea
time.
that he somehow lost 8 of those when this whole card is about how unstoppable
Yeah.
he is,
It
that doesn't make
make
any
s-
sense.
I
I think he
can't
lost maybe
believe it.
2.
Cosmic Spider-Man's still a conundrum for
And it's
me.
the last hologram card I got.
Oh my god.
Yeah.
And please look. Oh God, Captain America again. I guess they needed a certain quota of cards. There was
Yeah,
probably,
probably.
like a printing number.
Well, there are some rookie cards later that should have been these ones, but yeah, they
Because
just
this is
didn't
not
have
Captain
as-
America.
It's his
It's
motorcycle.
Captain America's motorcycle.
And I think it's the next card is extra confusing. But
Those guys are so impressed by his motorcycle. Man.
Reusing
They're
that
like-
same profile pic when it should be the motorcycle in there, not his face. His face is not the motorcycle.
just the gas cap.
And it's the same one as before. But look at the trivia. Captain America rode that motorcycle over the fucking ocean. Overseas
But
during
it's
World War
just
II.
weird because like this
The ocean
now
was a lot hotter then.
now canonically it's a Harley,
Yes,
And-
that's true.
That's Harley-esque.
and there's no like
Is it?
this
We need
this
Grim here to tell us.
this suggests there's a toy that they want you to buy, and there
Yeah.
wasn't.
I had a Spider-Mobile. I
So like,
spider
what was this
cycle, yeah,
for? It's so
yeah,
strange.
I mean, it is a standard thing that he has his motorcycle like
Which-
that's. I love
it
seeing
says
when-
Harley Davidson here.
I,
Oh, it
I
does.
love seeing
Alright.
when Chris Evans was Cap started riding his motorcycle on the second
Oh, right.
one
And
too.
destroys it every time.
It's an HVV twin inline 4-stroke engine. How did I? What are you talking
Yeah,
about?
standing start 1/4 mile, 11.5 seconds, Dude, I wish
But
I
he
knew what any of
seems
that
like
meant.
such
It's all
super.
wasted on
He
me.
just looks like Super Dave Osborne in that. It's,
Yeah.
it's,
So
it's
I
not
think-
cool.
So I
It's-
think the next card does the same thing. Where never mind.
No,
It's
see,
the
I was
Silver
super
Surfer.
excited. I love Silver Surfer at this
I
time.
love. Yeah, Norrin Rad's great. The board looks about 8 miles long. From perspective.
But yeah, this was
there.
my first introduction to him, and then a year later he'll be in Infinity Gauntlet in a big way. So this is what this is like. Literally opened my mind to like, wait, there's characters in space.
Yeah.
Like
That-
it's not just New York.
And that is a Kirby-esque background there. That's a spacey background.
Yeah.
And Kirby was alive at this time, but he was not going to be working on Marvel cards.
I think we have a new record for most battles fought.
Whoa, 7,000. Yeah. That's a lot of implied. He beats Nick Fury in win percentage. We have a winner.
Wow. Which is strange because most of his comics are about how he kind of
he wanders.
Well, he doesn't win that much.
If they count battles as he goes to a planet and says Galactus is going to eat you, and then Galactus ate it, he did that for millennia. So you can see why that number. I could see that that's the number being.
Sure,
that's insane. That means I battle with the IRS and the post office. That's just part of his job.
He's also got the only one with the stat planets saved.
Yeah.
Planets
How
saved.
Many planets did you kill, though, Norin? Huh?
That blood is
that's not on
your
your record.
I'm pretty sure Captain America's motorcycle saved some planets.
It can lift well over 100 tons.
Yeah.
That's the power cosmic for you.
And later cards would make this distinction where this card makes it sound like he's basically unstoppable. But what other cards do when they have the actual power rankings and ratings is they'll show his fighting ability sucks. He has great energy projection, powerful beams, physical strength, but is not a strategist, is not adept at fighting.
He gets chumped out so much.
Yeah, and he doesn't even if someone else had his same powers, they would rule the universe. But he just doesn't use them efficiently.
He can shoot explosive bolts of energy.
I mean, that's why his other arch nemesis is Mephisto this time, because he would just get intellectual battles with him of what is the soul of a man? Chaos? And he'd be like, no, it is order. They were boring books. I
never heard him called Surfy, and he can lift as much as Thor. Be sure to turn into part 1.
I bet he could win an arm wrestling match with Thor.
Yeah.
There we go. We're almost done with the Fantastic Four.
That's a boring shot of...
That literally looks like the McDonald's toy. Everything about it.
I gotta say, not the best shot. And Johnny should look cool and exciting.
Hey, it looks cool in that profile pic.
Hey, it does. Yeah, look, that's a much bigger improvement.
Hey, ladies.
That's him doing I wish he was doing the duck face for a classic old school selfie.
Again, a huge win percentage.
Yeah, it's pretty high for old Johnny.
Human Torch is married to Alicia Masters, the former longtime girlfriend of his fellow FF teammate, The Thing. What?
Not really, though. So, so The Thing goes away in Secret Wars. Nobody's with Alicia Masters. He gets with Alicia Masters. Even marries her. The Thing comes back. He's like, oh, shucks, I guess so. When they have to retcon that and they decide he's not married anymore, which is about 4 years after this card, she turns out to be a Skrull who was posing as Alicia Masters the entire time. He has a Skrull wife and a Skrull baby. They get divorced. And then Alicia Masters come back nah, Johnny, I never really was into you. And so, but she was briefly, the Skrull girl was a member of the team.
Do they legalize Skrull marriage?
No, it was maybe that's how it got annulled, because he's like, wait, no.
That is the most It's a Living picture I've ever seen.
Yeah, the lifeless, especially coming after Silver Surfer.
I always knew the Thing was a cuck.
Doctor Strange.
Ooh, the wands of Atum by the hoary hosts of Hogarth.
That crazy shit in the background, I don't know, tentacles and nebula and star maps.
These are my favorite cards, the Silver Surfer Dazzler cards with the.
It's too many little twinkles there, though. Get some other things in the background than just
But
starlights.
This was great because this is what the movie is going to do, or has done already. Which is it showed you it's not even just monsters and flying spacemen. Even it's there's an occult side, a magic side. This mysterious
material representation of depression.
Yeah, this Lovecraftian kind of stuff with ancient demon monsters that are in other dimensions.
This is where they reveal he's Mr. Fantastic with a mustache.
He saved 93 dimensions. That's pretty good, man. Well, he actually is. Just like Mr. Fantastic, he does the same thing in other people's books, which is if you have if you have a science problem, you go to Reed Richards. If you have a magic problem, you go to Doctor Strange. That's what happens in every Spider-Man book, Dark Hawk.
If you're having magic problems, I feel bad for you, son.
Wow,
I got a number of books, but Doctor Strange ain't one.
And he's got the Eye of Agamotto on him, and at this time he is the Sorcerer Supreme. He kind of goes in and out of that. Sorry, the Orb of Agamotto, not the Eye. I missaid that.
So his stats include dimensions saved, which is even bigger than a planet saved. So
you have to
eat it, Silver Surfer.
Multiple planets in there.
Yes, Colossus.
This is a weird time in Colossus' life where he's as nude as he ever is.
Wow, yeah.
And he was kind of seems to be bearing even more skin.
Seems very comfortable with himself.
More skin than even the Thing, I'd say. But which is weird too, because he transforms. So, but this was something we talked about on a superhero spotlight, which is when he was originally designed. Even they said you got to show as much skin as possible because his metal skin is the cool thing.
Yeah.
And
but this was probably my introduction to him too, and seeing this huge silver steel skin guy, I was like, this seems pretty cool, man.
Loved him.
See, at the time, Juggernaut was his #1 enemy because I guess they were both the bruisers who'd punch each other.
Look, his trivia is his hobby. Painting?
Yep, he is a painter. Around this time, he had been struck amnesia. He got struck with amnesia and just became a painter in New York City.
Very Russian painter. Love you, people.
Yeah, that's not even what he would look
Only
like.
70 tons, though. That's how I knew, but he's not as strong as Hulk whenever I'd have a conversation.
As strong as Grey Hulk.
Yeah, he is as strong.
See the last
as Grey
video,
Hulk.
people.
That should really just be a normal stat in every
Whoa,
card.
I forgot about this.
This
This
third Wolverine.
Is Patch, which he was known as in the John Byrne drawn first run of the Wolverine solo book.
But only this character has his archenemy being Roughhouse, right in between Clarissa Explains It All and Stimpy.
And Marvel Comics Presents was like secretly the other solo Wolverine book.
Yeah.
But it was a neat weekly book that had like half the book would be still 22 pages, but only 10 pages each for a story. And you'd flip it. It had a back cover and a...
195 pounds.
And that art, that is so
It's
80s,
awful.
like with the pink background.
Oh, yeah,
like,
pink background, yeah.
But
those feet make it look like a Liefeld
it's
drawing
getting
or something.
close to that. But the Did You Know is another like interesting thing of like when you're reading these cards and discovering that the healing factor is slowing his aging and he's already over 80 years old. Like that's...
Yeah, it's not mentioned on his 2 other cards.
At this point, it was not Wolverine's background was a nebulous thing. That's also what made it hard to explain him on the back of these things. So, but they did know he had been in World War II. So by this point, they knew he was in World War II. So they could say definitely over 80 years old. We can commit to that.
There he goes by a different identity, Patch, in his pursuit of pleasure and relaxation.
I think I just bought this collection, like Madripoor Nights or whatever.
Oh yeah. It was a fun time of him being Patch, and that was like when he's not behaving himself in Xavier's clubhouse. He would smoke cigars and drink
and now,
whiskey.
Even a character as cool as this has to not smoke, not kill people.
Nope. I was shocked the Thing card on the previous video did not have a cigar in his mouth. Instead had a big sandwich.
Next card. Yes! Nightcrawler, baby.
Kurt Wagner.
He doesn't hold swords enough.
We are missing a lot of X-Men so far.
I love his fencing ability. Like it's not played up enough. And same with...
Looks like he's in the danger room or has just escaped from the portal lab.
I would guess danger room, yeah.
I'm trying to make sense of that Olympic ring that is like caught in a pipe. Like I don't know what you're going to do with it.
Terrible design, Professor.
Strange. Yeah, the Professor's not the best at that. But at this point, he's in Excalibur. Kurt Wagner. And
nickname Fuzzy Elf? Bullshit. I'm calling bullshit on that.
That's the Simpsons cartoon within the show?
That was Arch Enemy Freedom Force. That is a total...
Yeah, wow.
I have no clue who Freedom Force is.
And we're in only the heroes territory, so I can't imagine a group of villains called the Freedom Force.
I don't
Yeah,
know.
I remember the Freedom Force.
Leave a comment, people.
I don't remember like why Nightcrawler is specifically against it.
I love that, accompanied by an audible bamf and the nauseating stench of brimstone.
Yeah,
Nice.
the dimension that he teleports through.
At this time, he was leading Excalibur. He wouldn't rejoin the X-Men for another few years, even though he's always been X-Men favorite. Since then, they found out that his father was kind of Lucifer. His mother is Mystique, and that he died. He also died briefly and has now come back from heaven. So.
Great. And the Amazing X-Men series from a year or so ago was like them trying to get back to the swashbuckling fun of Nightcrawler.
It's great stuff.
Next card. Yes! She-Hulk, baby.
Cha-cha.
This is one of my favorite cards.
I love She-Hulk.
She-Hulk.
Also in her bright green Cadillac. That
green
great.
Interior.
Oh, so great. I mean, I don't think... No,
59 Dodge convertible. Man, they call it out specifically.
That's not a John Byrne drawing, but that is totally in the style. At this time, she was in the John Byrne Sensational She-Hulk run, where it was much more jokier, and this is her in her kind of lighter... though she wasn't written to be like a bimbo, she was a super smart lawyer, but she was it was a silly winking book, but I loved it. She's still one of my all-time favorites.
And the card like starts selling the idea of like much unlike Hulk, who's a tragic figure, she loves being green and loves having the attention and the power, but it doesn't corrupt her. She just embraces it and it has fun with it and improves her life.
That's what Big Green Mama's all about.
And she's 6'7", a tall lady too. That's something a lot of artists, you got to remind artists, like, she is tall. You have to draw her as 5 inches taller than even Thor.
650 pounds.
And then also, I disagree with her arch enemies thing though. By this point, definitely Titania is one of her, or Titania, however you pronounce it.
It says she can bench 75 tons. They're not talking about like leg lifts or like dry lifts though. So I think she's still stronger than.
I mean, she replaced the Thing in Fantastic Four around this time, and also in this time, this was when she got into like she would get into strength contest in the books.
But that's more than Colossus. I felt like she was markedly less physically strong than regular Hulk.
Wow, her first nickname years before Nintendo would do it. Shulky.
I love Shulky as her
really
nickname.
feeling
That's one of my favorites.
And I was watching a 1980s movie set in New York, and the one thing I noticed is that it's in the Did You Know lime green we have gotten rid of almost every kind of green when it comes to cars except for forest green. There is no longer any bright greens out there, but there was in the 80s.
You get a kill Arnie Green?
Boring as. All right, here we go. Captain Britain.
That's again Mark Bagley.
So that lighthouse could just be anywhere else. It just looks precariously close.
It should be upside down and hanging from its taint.
Watch me squat over it.
Also, this feels like
I think about the British Isles.
It feels like Mark Bagley hadn't mastered feet yet because he was really hiding those feet in that shot. Like both feet, you can't draw them really.
This in the Marvel cards at this point led me to believe Captain Britain was just as important as everybody else, and I'm like, when am I going to see that in any of these comics?
Yeah.
And you never really do.
No, I know. Well, he was again in Excalibur. This shows you that Excalibur was pretty important in 1990, though. By the next card set,
didn't you describe
X-Force and X-Factor would easily be way more popular.
Did you describe Excalibur as a vanity project of somebody?
In a way, it is. Yeah, Chris Claremont had been the writer on X-Men for a million years, and he still was doing X-Men at this time. But he also wanted to shuttle off his favorites from X-Men, Nightcrawler and Shadowcat among them, and also Captain Britain, who he wrote in Marvel Comics beforehand.
Can somebody read the Did You Know?
It makes him look like a real turd. Captain Britain's powers derive from England itself. Away from his homeland, his might is considerably reduced.
I forgot that about it.
Wait, what about like Northern Ireland, which like
if there's a British flag, he's fine.
Okay,
but
what about British embassies?
That is the patriotic. That's
the
patriotic horseshit you'd expect to be Captain America's power.
Yeah.
In Scotland, he's like 80% as powerful.
All right, next card.
Hong Kong, though, great.
Yeah.
See,
not a fan of that costume.
They save all the X-Men for the end. What the hell?
This is a great like right before Rogue became the Rogue we all knew, and as a teenager lusted after. This is like the costume before all that.
So not the 70s jacket, mom boobs.
Yeah, I love that jacket, and I love it is a very sexy outfit with her skin tight green and yellow. But meanwhile, like her hair is crazy 80s too. Though her hair's pretty much the same. Well, actually not. She's in the 90s.
One of the most recently introduced superheroes in all of the cards we've looked at, which Marvel has not created an iconic superhero in 10 years at this point. How long has it been now?
Not as many. Well, you'll see some rookies later. Then I'm sure they'll all be memorable. They're all very memorable rookies.
Get ready for Fool Killer.
Rogue must wear a full bodysuit to prevent her from accidentally absorbing memories and powers from those around her.
But this is important to note that even as old as this card is, and this is kind of her first trading card, that this is still post she's absorbed Miss Marvel's powers.
Yeah.
And basically has those abilities. Because prior to this, she was a villain. And her power was just like, I can touch you and kind of
That's also why her arch enemy is like, Mystique should be there. Like, she was clearly her arch enemy even from the beginning. She got Captain Marvel's power. Now she's Captain Marvel. Miss Marvel's powers back then. She got them mainly because Chris Claremont loved Miss Marvel, but the book got canceled, and so he said, F this, I'm putting her in a coma and giving the powers to another character I control, Rogue.
Rogue, baby.
All right, that wraps up part 3 of our extensive look at this 1990 trading card set. And yet again, in our haste to get through the list as quickly as we could, we did miss another X-Man. This time it was Havoc. Sorry, Havoc. Alex Summers, everybody. With the power to scream forever, it would seem. But we're about to head on to our 4th and final look at the heroes, and then after that, we're on to the rest of the card set. If you like what you see, hit us up at LaserTimePodcast.com or follow us on Twitter, LaserTime Show.